Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now is the greatest head coach of all time and the greatest general manager of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, host of the Manning Cast first half, which we'll watch tonight, as the Ravens take on the Chargers in the Har Bowl. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Belichick.
Hey.
How are you, Coach?
Good, Pat. AJ, how you doing? Gang, how's it going?
How you doing, Coach?
Hell yeah, Coach. Coach, I can't help but notice all the game balls behind you. I think I've been told that those are potentially, there's some Dolphins ones in there. There's some, look at the Lombos. Hey, Coach, hey, you done good in this life, Coach. You done good in this life. We can't thank you enough for joining us. Let's chit-chat about tonight's game. Whenever you have two brothers taking each other on with very similar strategies, does it benefit either one of them? Is there any benefit to either of the Harbaughs tonight? And if you were one of them, what would you be thinking as you go into play against your brother?
I think that's probably a little bit overrated. In the end, you prepare your team and the players play the game on the field. You make, in-game adjustments. But, the play callers, I don't know how many plays Jim and John are calling. The play callers are really important in every game. And so, look, it's a great rivalry. It's very competitive, of course, at the top. But in the end, this game will be decided by the players on the field like it always is.
Is there any matchups that you like this evening? Like, for instance, we heard Roquan Smith going to be out. So we would assume with the way the Chargers like to run the ball at J.K. Dobbins, is that something that you'll be looking for? Is that a massive missing piece for the Ravens? Or what's a matchup we should think about?
Well, I think, as always, Pat, we know it comes down to points. And the Ravens are capable of scoring a lot. And the Chargers are one of the best red area defenses in the league. They do a really good job down there. They don't blitz a lot, but they keep people out of the end zone, and the scoring against them has been good. The Ravens have given up a lot of points. They've given up a lot of big plays, but that definitely quieted down last week. So we'll see if they can continue to improve on their defense and keep the points down. So, again, I think in the end it'll be whether the Chargers offense can control the ball and score enough points to win, or whether the Chargers defense can keep Baltimore from, look, Baltimore's going to get the ball down there. It's a question of how many points they come out with. I'd say, honestly, I always feel like Baltimore's biggest opponent is Baltimore. They're capable of playing great in all three phases, but some things have gone wrong for them over the course of the year, whether it's the place kicker, their defense, some untimely turnovers on offense. They're the most penalized team in the league, which, a lot of that is their fault. If they can clean those things up, I think they can be really, really good. But, we're 2/3 of the way through the season, and some of those problems still persist for the Ravens. So I think that's the big challenge for them. But looking forward to tonight. It should be a great matchup.
Yeah, you're talking about that red zone defense for the Chargers, and then you talk about the place kicker, like one of the greatest of all time. Look for a big bounce back game for Justin Tucker here.
Here we go.
Here we go, Tuck. Can't wait. I refuse to fully commit to the fact that Justin Tucker is going to miss a kick a game now. That is not who he is. He's going to bury him. Go ahead, AJ.
Coach, how would you, if you're running this Ravens defense, like what would be your plan to try to stop Justin Herbert? We know what he can do with his arm, but the guy, especially in the red zone, we've seen like the clips with this coach, like he's not scared to lower his head and get those tough yards, like Josh Allen-esque at times. I guess what would really be your plan to attack him?
Yeah, well, I think one of the strengths of the Ravens is actually their run defense. They play with really good technique. They use their hands well, and they're kind of built more for the running game than the passing game. The issue has really been more in the secondary play and some tackling back there. But, obviously you don't want to let the Chargers run the ball in, which is what they'll want to try to do. I think I take my chances on look, I don't want to see Herbert run, but I take my chances on him running. I think that the true running game is really more of an issue. But, look, you got to stay alert for him. Certainly, he's athletic enough to run the ball in there. I don't think that's what the Chargers really want to do, but would they sprinkle one in there? Yeah, sure. I think the big thing with Herbert is to, just keep him in the pocket and, make him throw under pressure. And, that hasn't been historically great for him. He's been really good in play action. which goes well with their running game, and that opens a lot of things up for the quarterbacks.
Okay, so let's talk about one of the running backs, and if you want to talk play action, he's having a massive year, Derrick Henry, but he's not the only one. Ty has a question for you.
Yeah, Coach, before the season, when a lot of these guys were free agents, everyone was talking about, hey, the running back position's devalued. No one's really going to want these guys. And then Derrick Henry, obviously we saw what Saquon did last night, and then Josh Jacobs with the Packers, among a couple other guys. We always talk about the NFL being cyclical. Do you think we're back to the point where teams are more focused on, hey, we need to have a dominant rushing attack in order to kind of win throughout the course of a season?
Well, I think it's always best offensively when you have good balance. And look, Derrick Henry's a great back. He's having a great year. So is Barkley. But when you look at the rest of the offense, Lamar is a huge problem. Hurts is a problem. The Eagles have really good receivers. I mean, I know Smith didn't play last night, but their receivers are good. The tight end's good. It's the same thing with the Ravens. Yes, Henry's a big problem. Lamar Jackson is probably even a bigger problem. Andrews is good. They have a lot of speed at receiver with, Flowers and Bateman and those guys. So the balance makes it hard to defend. And if you give it all up on one play on a long pass or a 30, 40-yard pass, that's very discouraging. So you never want to be just too light on that where you just gang up on the running game and then, give up big plays. On the other hand, if you're playing a little more balanced, then, guys like Henry and Jacobs and Barkley and those guys can do a lot of damage. So I think it's really benefited them to be on a well-balanced offense. And that's really what happened when we got Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon, they ganged up on him at Cincinnati. He was about all they had at that time, and it was tough sledding. He ran for 1,600 yards with us, but, when you can open up the game and the passing game and have more balance there, it just makes it better for everybody. And when those guys get out in space like Henry and Barkley do, they have the speed and the home run ability to have some 70, 80, 60-yard runs, which is a huge weapon when you can get those kind of big plays out of the running game. You usually don't count on an 80-yard run. You count on 10, 15, here and there when you block things well. But, those guys have the home run ball, and that makes them very, very dangerous.
Yeah, Coach, did you football lifers know that it was impossible for the game to keep going the way it was whenever they were trying to make it wide open, passing-only league, seemingly? Rules are being changed. Teams are being built differently. Did you football lifers know that the run game inevitably was going to be the most important part and come back to being a focal point?
Well, I'll just say this, Pat. I think every defensive coach, every defensive coordinator, every defensive play caller knows that there's kind of no worse feeling than to, get the ball back for the offense, and then the offense go out there and run 25 seconds off the clock with 3 incomplete passes, and you're back out there again. It's just AJ, you've been there. You've been on butt, you too. You come to the sideline. And you can't even get your, you can't even get a Gatorade, and you throw 3 incomplete passes, and you're back out there, and no time has come off the clock. And so, running the ball, being balanced, bringing the physicality to the game. Like, Detroit's done a great job with that with Coach Campbell and their running backs. They got 2 running backs that are very different, but they're both having a lot of success. They work off each other. It helps Goff. Play actions are open. I mean, everybody's being productive. I mean, those things are all work together. But to not run the ball, just go back there and throw it every time and throw incomplete passes. And we saw that last week when teams are trying to going back to the Charger Cincinnati game where his offenses are going out there and throwing 3 incomplete passes and giving the ball back where their opponent now has a chance to score and win at the end of the game. So. That's the defensive perspective.
Yeah, I didn't think about the managing of the game perspective, let alone like, hey, we can take advantage of them getting smaller linebackers and smaller D-line because they feel like they got to cover more and run. Also, managing the game, we're putting our defense in terrible spots whenever we just throw the ball. Feels like that's becoming football again. And I don't want to say again because it was never that way, but for everybody. Seems like everybody is kind of acknowledging that's the case. Speaking of, the Chiefs have won multiple times now with that adage. They also win close ones. Go ahead, Con Man.
Yeah, Coach, we were talking
talking earlier about how the Chiefs, they win games in very ugly ways sometimes, but they always get it done in the end. Is winning games, especially those close ones, a skill, and is that something you can work on? Obviously, the Chiefs, you could even throw the Vikings in there. The Vikings have won a lot of games very close, even when they've been up and kind of let the other team in. But is that something you can actually work on, or how do you go about, kind of spreading that message throughout your team, letting them know, like, hey, this might be close, but in the end, we will find a way to win?
Yeah, well, I think, look, you practice situational football every week, and you never know what's going to come up with. You're going to have to make a kick to win, return a kick to win, recover an onside kick, or play defense and stop them, or drive and score. I mean, it could be any or all of those. The first three quarters are the first three quarters, but when you get into that fourth quarter in a close game, it's really a lot about situational football. How many possessions do you have left? How do you make the most of those possessions? What do you need? And how do you stop the team? How do they play in those situations too? Do they go to a certain guy or a certain type of coverage or a certain type of pressure or whatever it is? Like, you just have to play. You have to play that final. It could be the final play of the game, the final series of the game, but you have to situationally play that out to win, and be able to execute it. It comes down to a field goal here, but you still have to make it against Carolina. We've seen several the last few weeks where you get in that situation and don't execute the kick. And so everybody understanding that when they're in the game in those situations, everything's dependent on how their team, when I say team, it's a team of teams, whether you're the field goal team, the hands team, the punt return team, kickoff coverage team, whatever it is, that, the game's on the line. This is your opportunity to play at a championship or winning level. And you need everybody to come through on that unit. And I think you saw a lot of that yesterday. It's the kickoff coverage team for Washington. It's the field goal team for Kansas City. It's the hands team in the Bears game. I mean, those units all became very important. Now, I'll just say, like, I don't know why you would ever kick the ball to Turpin. I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah. That's, to me, this is the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing that happened to Cleveland in the opener. They lob it down the middle of the field to him a couple times on punts, and he rips one back on him. Here he muffs it, and so that might have, slowed the coverage down a little bit. But, I mean, you just got really nobody playing off a block, nobody really covering a kick. I mean, it's just terrible. Why you would let this guy touch the ball, look, they hand it to him, that's one thing, but to kick it to him and let him return it, I mean, you're eventually going to pay the price. This guy's just too good.
Special teams all over that game yesterday between the Cowboys and the Commanders. Block kicks, missed kicks, big return. I mean, yes, very massive for both sides. And if you're going to be great, you're going to have to be very sound in the special teams department, which is why we're all pretty jacked up to see kind of how Justin Tucker does tonight for this Baltimore Ravens team. At this point of the season, do we know who everybody is? Do you think we know who everybody is? Like the Niners, they lose big yesterday to the Packers without their quarterback, obviously. But all year it seems like they've been different than what they've been in the past. Then, let's talk to the Lions. Lions are beating the hell out of teams right now. Like, do you think we know who these teams are at this point? Are we deep enough into this to figure out who we think is going to go and who potentially has no chance?
Well, what were you saying last year about the Eagles when they were 10-1?
Oh, they were going to go win it all. Yeah. They were the best team in football, Coach. They were the best team in football.
I don't think it's really that important what's happened to this point. I think the teams that are still in it, if they play well in the remaining part of the season, they'll be in good shape and they'll have a good chance to win. The Giants did that in both their Super Bowl wins under Coach Coughlin. Tampa did that in 2000. Those are wild card teams that they barely made it into the playoffs, but they played well enough at the end to get into the playoffs and then played well in playoff time. So I think the teams that are in position now, great. Some teams are in better position than others, but really what happens in the remaining few weeks of the season here is going to determine how the seasons turn out. I mean, you look at Dallas last year. They won the division. I mean, they had a really good year. Had one bad game against Green Bay, and everybody thought they had a terrible year. So it really is about what happens from here on out. Now, there's a number of teams, there's a third of the league that are out. Their season's essentially over. Like, they have maybe a mathematical chance, but they're out of it. So, and they're already starting to get ready for next year and that type of thing in terms of, playing time, adjusting their roster, maybe claiming guys, things like that kind of think about next year's roster. But the other 2/3 of the teams are battling it out for those playoff spots. And everything depends on how it goes from here forward, not what happened behind them. It's what's in front of them.
All right, get hot. Get hot.
Yeah.
Get hot. Now's the time. Everything's in front of you. Go ahead and get it. And obviously, in the hunt, there's a little bit more teams in the NFC playoff picture than there is in the AFC. But the NFC at the top, especially that NFC North, just 10 wins, 8 wins, 8 wins. It's bananas on the NFC side. The AFC side, going to be a dogfight all the way to the end. D-Bud has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, you obviously played, coach for a long time, called plays as a head coach as well, and you spent a lot of time with different coordinators that went on to other places. Now, tonight, it's a lot of people familiar with the other teams. Zach Orr, defensive coordinator, obviously was in the building with Greg Roman. Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator for the Chargers, was in the building with the Ravens as well. So, does that help, I guess, the defensive side or the offensive side more? And with the gotta have it situations, how big are those situations when you've been in the building, you've been in the meeting rooms with those guys?
Yeah, I think you can overthink that a little bit. If it's they know that we know that they know that we know that they know. No, and you just, in the end, what really matters is what you can do. What can you execute? And this can be a great play. That could be a great play. If you can execute it well, good. Might be a great idea, but if you can't do it very good, or you can't really, that's not what you do. That's not the type of thing that your style is. Then you're probably better off not doing it. I think in the end, Jim Harbaugh is going to do what he does, and they're going to live and die like they always do on the running game, good defense, good tough football. And look, Baltimore is Baltimore. I think they're very capable of, I think, beating any team in the league, maybe by a couple touchdowns, to be honest with you, but not if they're the most penalized team in the league, which they are now. Not if they, give up, in the 30s on the points and have to try to outscore everybody. Not if they, keep missing key kicks and all that. They're capable of that. They just haven't done it consistently. I think if Baltimore can put it together, in the last part of the season here, they're going to be hard to beat. But if they keep, they form certain habits, and those habits right now haven't really changed much going back to the first week of the season. So if that's who they are, then they're going to run into a game where they just don't play their best, and they're going to come up short. But if they could get it going, and I think Lamar is having a great year. I think he's bailed them out so many times, but you just can't keep being in 2nd and 20, 3rd and 17, 1st and 15, 1st and 20. It's just, it puts so much pressure on your team. And Lamar's done a great job of getting out of it for the most part, and still scoring a lot of points. But it just, that's why they've lost. What have they lost? 4 games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those long yardage situations that are penalties that are your fault. They're those false starts and formations and all that. Those aren't defensive penalties. Those are drop passes. They've had just too many plays like that for a good football team. And I think when they put it together, they're going to be very, very tough. And if they don't, then they're going to, keep struggling a little bit like they have. And, sometimes they'll be all right and sometimes they won't.
A lot of people think they're going to put it together. Where's the money at tonight on this particular game?
70% is on the Ravens.
70% is on the Ravens, minus 2.5 going in to take on Jim. Who knows how it ends up. If they do piece it together, you're talking about, here we go.
Big time.
Lights, camera, action. Mostly action, like Jameis Winston says. But they've not. This Herbert-led Chargers team will take advantage. And I don't think a lot of people have watched a lot of Chargers football this year. I think that's potentially why the number is the way it is. This Chargers team wins the games that they would normally lose in years past. Feels different. It's amazing what a good leadership can do to a building, Coach. Isn't it crazy? It's amazing what can happen.
Yeah, the mental toughness and physical toughness that they've shown. And again, their red area defense, they've really been resilient. They've had a good, solid running game, and that's opened up the passing game. Instead of having Herbert go back there and try to throw the ball 35 times, 40 times, they're able to balance things up, and the defense has played well too. So again, the offense doesn't feel like they got to go out there and score 40 points. But with the Ravens, sometimes they've had to go out and score 40 points to win. And if they can tighten that up a little bit defensively, from where they've been, and stop giving up, those long plays and easy touchdowns, then, they'll probably outscore teams. But, when you're counting on scoring 40 points on offense every week, it's just hard. And they'll probably have a hard time doing that against the Chargers tonight. I don't think they're going to be able to, put up that kind of number. They're capable of it, but they just haven't shown the consistency to do that against a good defense.
Go ahead, AJ.
Coach, can you explain a little bit of what playoff football feels like as far as like the week of leading up to it? I know coaches sometimes want to keep everything as normal as you can. Hey, it's just a normal work week. But how do you, I guess, prepare players, maybe some guys that haven't been in those situations, the win or go home, to not put too much into it and just play, tell them, hey, do what got you here. There's a reason we're here. Like, how do you not build it up too much for guys that maybe be experiencing the playoffs for the first time?
Question, and I think there's definitely a mentality of, look, the game's still played on the same field, the time's the same, the rules are the same. It's just another football game. I think the big difference, though, when you get to playoff football is, you have, let's call it 60 plays on defense, 65 plays on offense, whatever it is. That's what you have left in your season, period. You don't have any more than that if you don't perform well. So that's different than right now. I mean, no matter what happens in the game tonight, there's another game next week. There's another game the week after that. Well, when you get into playoff football, there is no other game. So, I tell the coordinators, look, you got 65 plays left. Let's make sure we have the right ones. We have our right best guys doing what they do best. We run the plays that we're most confident in, and we don't have any extra plays. Those, we're not saving it for next week or next month. If it's not a good play this week, let's throw it out and let's talk about what can help us win this week. So, Josh McDaniels has always did a great job on that, especially offensively, because you control the play. But whether it's offensively, defensively, in the kicking game, who do we want back there handling the ball? What's our best return? What's our best pass rush? Way to pressure the quarterback and so forth. Those are great. I think decisions that coordinators and play callers have to make, because you have a finite number of plays left, and then if you win, then you have a finite number of plays left the next week. But that's how I would look. If that's putting too much pressure on it, then that maybe that's too much pressure. But that's the reality of it.
It worked, I think, for a long time. You talk about those big moments, and we just saw Patrick Mahomes lead his team back to a win against Carolina Panthers, and I think as soon as he got the ball with 119 or whatever, we all knew what was going to happen. It's just like when Tom got the ball with you guys, and Tom and I obviously mean the entire offense, it's like we all kind of knew what was going to take place. What do you think separates the people that are able to do that and those that are not? Like, why are Tom and Patrick – when Patrick goes out there yesterday, we go – yep, too much time. He's going to go down the field and do that. Tom, it was the same exact way for the Patriots whenever you guys had your long dynastic run. What separates them, you think, and why do they have that and then others don't?
Well, again, it's situational football. It's knowing what you need, knowing what you need to do to win. And, certainly the Chiefs, I mean, look, it's no secret. They've had trouble protecting the passer. So, Mahomes is good enough to not go back there and hold the ball and get sacked and take a negative play. He's going to get it out of there quick, and if he has to run, he has to run. And he's again kind of made that same like dipsy-do move on the sideline where maybe it looked like he was running out of bounds to stop the clock, and then he slips down there and ends up getting in the field goal range. So, those guys are really resourceful. They know how to do those things. But look, the Chiefs have won games this year in the kicking game. They've won it on defense where they made stops, and I mean, they won it yesterday with a kicker who never kicked for him before. So. I think there's definitely a confidence in a mentality, but it's also situational football of knowing, what you can execute and how to do it. And I think that the special teams coach, Dave, Todd does a, great job there, as does, Andy and Coach Nagy and Spags and all that, of knowing what their guys can do. Like, what is field goal range for a new kicker? What can we get from this guy? Where do we need to be? And Mahomes gets him to that point and he makes it. So it's, it's knowing what you need to do at the right time and then being able to do it.
It's fun to watch. Some teams have it, some teams don't. Man, it'd be cool to be fans of those guys.
Yeah, I'd say.
Ladies go ahead.
But I think team is the key word. Team's the key word. It's not one guy. Mahomes doesn't play defense. Chris Jones doesn't play offense. Whoever doesn't. I mean, Kelsey doesn't kick. You've got to have a balanced team. You've got to have people to step in and make those plays when you need them to. And, Washington could have used somebody to cover kicks. Dallas could have used somebody to stop McLaurin. You got to be able to make those plays at critical times. And, that game went back and forth. Big onside kick recovery in the Chicago game, kept them alive. But that hands team, look, that's a team you use how many times a year? Maybe 2-3 times a year, but if you make that play, you win the game. You win the game. And if you don't make that play, then, you're putting yourself in a position where, you lose it. And so here's an example where, the guys on the front line are going up to block and the ball's not even going 10 yards. And so naturally it, hits guys that are blocking. They don't see it. And so now it's a live ball.
Coach, what's the rule there? Because isn't he defenseless if he doesn't choose to engage? Like, Bears guy's not allowed to hit Vikings guy in that 10 yards, right? If he comes in there, unless Vikings guy chooses to hit the Bears guy?
Yeah, well, the Minnesota players go ahead and block. And then as they're blocking, the ball hits them because they're looking to block, expecting the ball to go more than 10 yards. But, when teams are going up to block like this and you kick it right into the blockers, then, there's a chance that it could hit one of them, which is what happens here.
I think if he was to go up and just act like he was catching it, I think he's not allowed to get hit in those first 10 yards.
Until he touches it.
Yeah, until he touches it. The guy on the Vikings, the guy that gets hit with that ball, if he does not engage in hitting that guy and acts like he's getting ball, they're not allowed to hit him. He's like a free. But since he engaged with contact, then now he's allowed to get hit or whatever.
Yeah, to Coach's point, you're only doing that three times a year, and your job is, hey, I got to block one, I got to block two. So that's all he's thinking about. He's not even looking at the ball or doing the.
It's a great onside kick.
Great onside.
Great onside.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's two strategies on that. It's put your two best ball recovery guys, like here's Jefferson down here, put your two best and let the other guys block and let them recover the ball, or put your best ball handlers up there. But then if they kick it past the ball handlers, they're not necessarily your best blockers. So, you decide to do it one way or the other. But I'm just saying, when you go and block the kicking team, if you kick the ball short and it hits them, then this is what can happen. If you kick it deeper than 10 yards, then they go block the guys and they leave it for Jefferson or Kelsey or the ball recovery guy to handle. So, but again, it's just the execution in that play. If you execute that play and get the ball, you win the game. And if you don't, then they've got the ball at midfield with a chance to beat you.
27.
If you're on that team, then that's the most important job in the world for you when that play comes up, because the game's on the line.
27-16, 30 seconds left. Yeah. And it ends up going to overtime, obviously. Great execution by Chicago, then great will to win there by the Vikings. Hey, we can't wait to watch it tonight, Coach. It's going to be a blast on the Manning Cast.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, this should be a good one tonight, the Harbaugh Bowl. Hopefully the lights won't go out.
Amen. Shout out to New Orleans. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Bill Belichick.
Hey,